Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where I share with you the teachings of the Buddha to help you get to this enlightened mental state. Tonight's class is all about eliminating fear. Are you really scared? This is chapter 17 of our book, Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Because by the time someone gets to enlightenment, they don't have any fear. Whether you're afraid of spiders or afraid of heights or afraid of your own death, you can actually eliminate all this fear, because it's a real burden to walk around carrying fear, and you'll actually really modify your life. I mean, if you're afraid of dogs and you're walking around, or you're afraid of large crowds or spiders or things like this, the mind is unstable, it's shaken up. So you can actually get rid of all of this. So I'm going to start off with meditation first, doing some meditation where I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. Then I'm going to guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation. Then it's going to be quiet for a period of time. We're just meditating. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start the class in helping students to be able to understand eliminating fears. If you'd like to do the chanting, we have chanting sheets over there on the table, and for those of you guys online, they're on our website at buddha-dailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom. So make yourself comfortable. We have the seated, lying, standing. There's even a walking position too, but you learn these as part of your journey. So just make yourself comfortable, and I'll guide you in the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang namasami Supatipano mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti piso mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakhato rokavitu Anuttaro purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment as a foundation in the understanding the Buddhist teachings. And in order to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, by the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have trained your mind to eliminate all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. You don't have to actually walk around with all these discontent feelings. You can get to the point where your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming. You don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility any longer in your relationships. And this is coming through training of your mind and uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings. Oftentimes people think that these discontent feelings are being caused by something external. You might think it's your mom and dad that are making you angry, or your brothers and sisters that are frustrating you, or your boss is annoying you, or something like this. But this isn't actually true. It's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and this is why you can eliminate them. One of the feelings that can be eliminated from the mind is fear. That you don't have to walk around with fear of spiders, or fear of heights, or fear of death, or any of these other kinds of things. And that's actually what today's class is all about, is helping students to be able to understand how to eliminate fear fear. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, there is no fear in your mind, even the fear of death. That your mind has eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some teachings with you guys to be able to help you understand this topic. And then I'm going to pause and open up to questions, because that's part of getting help on the path to enlightenment, is to be able to seek understanding and clarity, because you're not going to understand everything the first time that you've been exposed to it. So here at the temple, if you guys would like to ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl there. All you need to do is get a microphone, bring it to your seat. You press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on. And if you hold it up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you on the live stream as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you on the live stream. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because someone around you might have a question, or you might have a question, more than one. You can actually ask your questions. And if you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand electronically in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So again, these feelings of fear isn't something that you need to walk around with. Just like you might get a spam email and you can opt out of that spam email and unsubscribe to that list. It's the same thing that is true with these feelings. Oftentimes people think that as a human being, that because you've experienced these feelings for so long, that you're just going to be relegated to these feelings for the rest of your life. But the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago how to actually eliminate these discontent feelings through training of his own mind. And then he dedicated the rest of his life to sharing those teachings to help other people understand how to do that same thing. So you can actually learn how to clean your mind, how to purify the mind, and get to the point where it's no longer experiencing these discontent feelings. You know, most of us grew up in environments where these teachings didn't exist, and that's why we don't understand them as we have gotten to this point in time in our life. You know, we learned how to clean our body when we were growing up as children, but we may not have learned how to clean our mind. And if you walked around with a dirty body for multiple days, weeks, months, or years, you'd feel pretty uncomfortable walking around with that body that you hadn't cleaned. Well, it's the same thing that is true with the mind, that if you don't clean up your mind and you don't purify your mind, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable to walk around with that mind for the rest of this life. So you can actually get to a point where you understand the wisdom of how to clean up the mind, and now you can get to a point where you can purify your mind and experience the benefits of the enlightened mental state. So I'm going to help you to understand what is causing this fear, so that then you can understand how to eliminate it. And I've taught this already in this group learning program. So many of you guys that are online and some of the people that are here, you guys have already learned this. So I'm not going to really go over this in a lot of detail, but I understand some of you guys have never learned with me before. This is your first time here, and that's okay. But just understand that this is where someone would normally start in their journey to enlightenment, is understanding what's called the three universal truths and the four noble truths. None of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You're actually learning, you're examining and investigating his teachings intellectually. You're reflecting on them to independently verify them, and then you're practicing them in order to be able to awaken to the wisdom that he shared. That in the three universal truths, he's explaining that everything in the world is constantly changing. This is an important thing to understand. And then he explains to you what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, which are discontent feelings. These are conditioned feelings that based on some condition, the mind's then going to experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant feelings. And then there's something called the universal truth of non-self, which I don't think I'm going to go into a lot of detail right now, just because the people that are studying with me online, they've already learned this multiple times, and we taught this subject multiple times in this program. But nonetheless, this is the universal truths, which are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is what's going to help you to understand what's causing these feelings. You need to be able to understand what is craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is the mind holding on. This is the mind craving, longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. If the mind gets what it wants, you experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation. But if you don't get what you want, the mind experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. The mind is longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks, what do I need to be happy? oh, I need more money. That's what'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So the mind will chase that and chase it and chase it. And if you get it, you'll be happy for a period of time, but ultimately that happiness will fade away. And then the mind's like, what do I need? Oh, I need a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And then you'll chase one of those for a while and you'll get that. And you'll be happy at the beginning, but then that happiness fades away and then you're angry and frustrated, or you guys might break up. And then the mind's like, what do I need now? Oh, a new house, a new car. That's what'll do it. Let me get one of those. And now the mind chases that. And again, you're happy for a period of time, but then it ultimately fades away. So this craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the mind thinks that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So it chases after it. So this is an understanding that you need to have in order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, is how the mind's longing, yearning. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh man, brand new pair of shoes. Oh yeah, I want to get those. Or maybe it was a video game or a piece of jewelry or some article of clothing. The mind's like, oh yes, I just can't wait to get that. And you go in the store and they have what you wanted and you're so happy about that. But if you went into the store and they didn't have your size, you're like, you're frustrated and angry because the mind's not getting what it wants. The mind's longing, yearning for this thing. So the Buddha explains this in the Four Noble Truths to help you understand that in the first Noble Truth, he's explaining the problem. In the second Noble Truth, he's explaining the cause of that problem. The third Noble Truth is explaining the elimination of it. And the fourth Noble Truth is explaining the solution of how to fix it. You can actually have a breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings so that then you can actually eliminate them. If you didn't understand what was causing things like fear, you would never actually be able to eliminate it. So I need you to be able to understand this so that I can teach you how to eliminate your fears. So the first Noble Truth is explaining the problem that every unenlightened being is experiencing, which is the mind is experiencing discontentedness. It's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you will either experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. So for example, the mind gets happy and excited and elated. You're so happy and thrilled, but then that fades away and now you're angry and sad and frustrated. But then you're embarrassed and disappointed. You might be peaceful and joyful here and there in the middle every once in a while, but it's only a matter of time before you get agitated or frustrated about something. This is the underlying problem that the Buddha has discovered in the mind, is going up and down and up and down and up and down. The mind's not stable. It's not steady. And when your mind is shaken up like that, you don't make wise decisions. When you're angry, when you're frustrated or agitated, you're not making wise decisions. So therefore, you're experiencing unwholesome results based on your unwise decisions. So this is the problem that every unenlightened being is experiencing. The cause of that discontentedness is craving, desire, attachment. The mind longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. If it gets what it wants, again, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness. But if you don't get what you want, the mind gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. The mind is craving permanence. You can see this if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first got together, you were happy and excited. But when you guys broke up, you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person. This is because the mind's craving permanence. It's holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent. If you've had people that are close to you that have died, you can see the same thing. That when they're alive, your mind's getting what you want. So there's a certain amount of happiness there. But then when they die, your mind is not getting what it wants, which is that permanence. It's craving permanence. And now when grandma or grandpa die, the mind is upset or angry or sad or sorrowful. You're not a bad person if your mind's doing this. It's just what the unenlightened mind does is it's forming its inner feelings based on some external thing, some condition, and it's craving permanence. It doesn't understand the wisdom of the universal truth of impermanence, that because grandma and grandpa were born, they have to die. Right? That's the only reason why people die, is because they were born. That every single one of us are going to die at some point. We are not permanent. We are impermanent. But the mind craves permanence. You can see this if you've gotten a brand new car and you're so happy and excited with your brand new car, but you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You might be angry or frustrated or sad. It's not the scratch that's causing the anger and frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the mind to be angry and frustrated is it's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is impermanent. It's going to get a scratch. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is impermanent. It's not permanent. It's temporary. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if our mind craves permanence, when you experience impermanence, your mind won't like that. It'll be very frustrated or angry. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence while it's living in an impermanent world. Another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. You can think about your life when things have changed, like your job or your occupation or your relationships or your living location. Those were some of the most challenging times in your life because your mind didn't like that change. Even when you were making the decisions for that change to occur, your mind didn't like it. So the mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state, but you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing. So as long as your mind's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world, you'll struggle and have difficulties. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. So you can't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself. So I invite you to take a recent experience when you've been angry or frustrated. Might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was your mind longing, yearning for? What were you craving? That if you would have gotten it, you would have been so happy. But because you didn't get it, you were angry or frustrated or sad. You should be able to see it in your own life. And if you can't, let me know and I will help you to see it. Because maybe you were on your way to Thailand. You were so excited to go to Thailand. I can't wait to get there. They have mango and sticky rice. They have massages. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get there, right? But then you show up to the airport and your flight's delayed or it's canceled. Now you're frustrated and angry. It's not the airline company that's causing that. It's the mind craving permanence. I want every single flight to take off on time, especially the flights I'm on. That's what you probably think, right? But it's not possible for every flight to take off on time because of impermanence. There's going to be a maintenance issue, a crew issue, a weather issue, right? You're not going to get permanently situation where all your flights take off on time. So the cause of these feelings is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's craving permanence. And you need to be able to see that through your own independent verification. You can't believe me. You need to be able to see it for yourself because you can have this breakthrough and stop blaming other people for the feelings that you're having, because then you can actually solve the problem when you see the real problem is inside of one's own mind. Because the third noble truth explains the solution. That in order to eliminate discontentedness, you need to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments. If you can eliminate that longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, craving permanence, that will eliminate your discontentedness. This is the gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that the Buddha teaches you. And in the Fourth Noble Truth, that's the actual solution, the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after things. So sometimes when people hear me talk about eliminating this longing, yearning, and chasing after things, they think, well, wouldn't my mind be quite lazy and dull and lethargic? Because that's what you're used to having as motivation, is that you're chasing and chasing and chasing. And when you scale that back, some people think their mind would swing over here to this laziness and dullness and lethargic condition. It can do that, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to come to the middle, where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making with enthusiasm and ambition. But you're not forming your feelings on whether you get this thing or not, because you're not going to always get that thing, because that would be permanence. So what I was just explaining to you with these Four Noble Truths, These Four Noble Truths is what's called right view, that you understand what is the problem, which is the discontentedness. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. The elimination of that is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And the way to do that, the complete perfect plan to help you, is the Eightfold Path. So this makes up right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people. If you continue to go around blaming other people for the feelings that you experience, you'll never eliminate your anger, your sadness, or frustration. But if you have right view, if you've established right view and you have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings, now you start looking inward and you start trying to figure out, what am I longing, yearning for? If you go back to your hotel room and your bed isn't made and you start getting angry and frustrated about that, instead of blaming the hotel or the maid, start looking inward. What am I craving? What am I I want them to make my bed every day. I'm expecting that every single day they will make my bed. Well, of course, the hotel aspires to do that, but they're not going to always be able to do that. Sometimes there's going to be something that happens where they don't make your bed, right? Whereas if the mind craves permanence, it'll be angry and frustrated at that situation and start blaming the hotel, maybe being bitter and harsh and hostile with the workers at the hotel, when in reality, you could just politely ask, what's happening here? Is there something that's happened? Can I understand what's going on with the hotel? You could be polite and friendly and respectful, because that's what's going to produce wholesome results for you. When you're bitter and harsh and hostile with people, you're going to experience that coming right back to you. So in order to understand how to eliminate your fear, you need to understand what's causing it. It's a craving for permanence. The mind craves permanence. And when the mind experiences those painful feelings, what it will tend to do is function unskillfully. It will tend to push people away or push a situation away. This is called aversion, where the mind thinks that the problem is external, and it thinks if I push this person away or if I push this situation away, that'll solve the problem. So you might have pushed away friends and family out of your life, thinking that was going to solve the problem. But you can see that didn't solve the problem, because the mind still gets angry, it still gets frustrated, it still gets agitated. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you can see that doesn't solve the problem either, because it just damages your relationships. And then the third thing the mind will do when it thinks that the problem is external and it doesn't understand the Four Noble Truths, is it might put its expectations on people and try to control people and pressure them to do things your way. So as long as the mind's pushing away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting expectations on people, it's never going to solve the problem that it has within its own mind, because it thinks the problem's external. And there's 8 billion people in the world, and you can't train all these people to do things your way. So when the mind's pushing a situation away, that's called aversion. And that's what the mind does with fear. That if you fear spiders, the mind craves permanence. It's craving to never see a spider. That's the permanence that it's craving. And the mind thinks, I can just push this situation away and I've solved my problem. I'll never see a spider. But you're going to see a spider. Or if you fear large crowds, you don't feel comfortable around large crowds. You have fear when you're around large crowds. The mind's craving this permanence where you're just around 2 or 3 people, right? That's the permanence that it's craving, and it's trying to push away these large crowds. But someday you're going to be walking down the street, maybe you're in New York City, and you turn the corner. Next thing you know, you're in a big protest or a big parade or something like that, right? Or you're at the walking market and there's tons of people perhaps, right? Or the mind's pushing away this death, right? Thinking, oh gosh, I don't even want to think about dying. I don't even want to think about that. That's so far down the line. Maybe that's what you think. And your mind's trying to push that away. That's the aversion, right? There's so many things that your mind could potentially fear, and it will try to push these things away. But that doesn't solve the problem, because the root cause of the fear is inside your mind, where it's craving permanence. And you'll continue to carry around this burden of this craving, desire, attachments. And this is why the mind lacks concentration. This is why it lacks focus. This is why it has difficulties with memory and clarity, because it's polluted with this pollutions that the Buddha discovered. And as long as you keep carrying these things around, your mind won't function optimally. So there's a solution for you, which is to practice the entire Eightfold Path. You're going to need to learn each one of these factors and practice them closely. But then once you do, you can actually get to the point where you do something very specific to eliminate your fear. That if you understand you need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment in the mind, and that's what's going to eliminate the fear, well, what you do instead of pushing this thing away with aversion is you actually expose the mind to the thing that it fears. And that's what's going to train your mind to let go of its craving, desire, attachment. So I'll give you some examples here so you can understand what it is that I'm sharing with you. Let's just say I was afraid of spiders. I'm having this craving to never see spiders. And now I think that I can push this away and that's going to solve the problem, but it's not, because you're going to see a spider or a snake or something like this from time to time, and now the mind's shaken up. Instead of doing that, which doesn't get to the root cause within your own mind, what you do is you start exposing the mind to these kinds of things. So if it was spiders, you might get a magazine or you might look at pictures on the internet and expose the mind to spiders and start looking at them. And you're going to notice that the fear is going to start coming up in the mind, and you cut that off and you cut it off and you cut it off and you train your mind to let it go. You're not suppressing it or repressing it. You're training your mind to cut it off and let it go, and don't associate looking at a spider with something fearful. And now after you've done that a couple times and you notice you don't have any fear and you can look at the pictures just fine, now you increment the stimulus a little bit more. Maybe you go to a museum where they've preserved the spiders, but you still see their little eyes. And you still see the hair on their body, and you start looking at them. And now again, the fear is going to come up, and you cut that off and cut that off and cut that off. And you might need to do that a few times over a couple of sessions. And eventually you can see these spiders and you don't have any fear. But then you'd like to increment it a little bit further. And now maybe go out into a zoo or a pet store, or maybe out into the woods in the forest and start looking under some rocks and see if you can find some spiders, right? And now you look at them walking around and they're not doing anything but other than just trying to get away from you. That's all they're doing, right? Because they have fear. They're trying to get away from you, right? And you just understand, I'm not causing any harm to this being, to this spider, so therefore it's not causing any harm to me. And you replace that conditioning that the mind has to think that when I see a spider, something bad is going to happen. You're replacing that. You're unraveling that. You're cleaning that out of your mind to have these new experiences where you can see spiders and not be afraid of them. And now you've desensitized the mind to a spider. So now 2 months down the road, 6 months down the road, you see a spider and it's like, oh, there's a spider. I've seen one of those many times. Yep. Maybe I'll move it outside. Maybe I'll just let it be. You know, it's up to you what you choose to do with it, but you won't have fear, because when you have fear, your mind's shaken up and you can't make wise decisions. Let's take another one. Let's just say you're afraid of heights. Or maybe let's take a large crowd. Let's say you're afraid of a large crowd. Well, instead of pushing this away, that's not going to solve the problem, because one day you're going to be around large crowds. You would like to desensitize the mind to this. You'd like to go around some large crowds and train your mind to be comfortable in that environment. Let's take heights, because that's a common one actually. So the mind here is craving to be on the ground floor. It's not comfortable when it goes up high, right? So you like to go to a mall, go up to the second or third floor, look over the edge, sit there, desensitize the mind, kind of train the mind like, hey, this is okay. Nothing bad is happening. And now you might feel comfortable and that's all you do in that session. But now maybe you come back a few days later, a few weeks later, and you go up a little bit higher, 4, 5, 6 floors, right? And now over time, you go up higher and higher and higher until you're comfortable at higher and higher heights. Maybe you can even climb a ladder or do other things like this, and you'll feel comfortable because you've desensitized the mind to it. If you avoid it, your mind's never going to let go of this craving. And now let's talk about death, and then I'll open up to questions that you guys might have, because oftentimes people are afraid of death. What the mind's doing here is it's craving permanent life. It wants to live in this world permanently, and it's holding on to these relationships and these material possessions and all these other things, and it's craving this to be permanent. And when you're getting close to death, the mind doesn't want that, because that's impermanence, and the mind's craving this permanence. Or you might be craving permanent comfort of the body, where the mind isn't interested in the painful experience of death in terms of like physical pain. So the mind can actually have a craving for permanent comfort of the body, where you're going to to experience discomfort in this body from time to time. It's not possible to have permanent comfort in the body. So if the mind's holding on to life and craving permanent life, you know that that's not going to happen, right? But the mind will tend to avoid this and not want to think about death. So the Buddha teaches a technique called contemplation of death or reflection of death, where you sit quietly somewhere, you close your eyes, and you envision and convince your mind that you've actually died. You're not aspiring to die. You're just convincing your mind that you've actually died and kind of play it out within your own mind. Kind of like maybe envision that you got in a car accident or you've had a slow death. Maybe you got cancer and over the multiple years you've slowly deteriorated and gotten to death or whatever it is, right? You envision that in your mind over about a 10 or 15 minute period. And you even envision your funeral, whether you're buried or cremated. You're not planning what's going to happen. You're just convincing your mind that this has happened. You're confronting death here, right? And now you play it out in your mind and you might grieve. You might be sorrowful. You might be angry or any other discontent feelings. Fear might arise. But what you do is you train your mind to cut that off and get comfortable with this death. And now you do this over multiple sessions, spreading them out about once a month. And eventually you'll get to a point where you don't grieve, you don't have sadness, you don't have fear. Because essentially what you're doing is like fear is waiting in the corner back there in the back of the room. This death is waiting back there for you. And this death is going to come and visage you. And it's either going to sneak up on you and catch you by surprise, and you're going to feel like someone's pulled the carpet out from under your feet or cut you off at the legs. Or you can be like, I see you, death, back there. I know you're going to come visit me someday. So you know what? I'm going to come visit you. I'm not going to let you sneak up on me. I'm going to come visit you. I'm going to make friends with you. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to get to experience what this death is like. And now I can get comfortable with this. And if you do that over multiple sessions, you'll get to the point where you don't fear death anymore. So that then when you actually get close to death, been there, done that. You're already comfortable with it. You're already familiar with it, that it's not sneaking up on you. So this is called contemplation of death or reflection on death. And this is what's going to help you to train your mind to let that go, because what I'm teaching you is to put the mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in. Right? So that the spiders, it doesn't want to be in that situation. The large crowds, it doesn't want to be in that situation. The heights, it doesn't want to be in that situation. This death, you need to put your mind in that situation and desensitize it. But of course, you're not interested in committing suicide. That's not what we're talking about here. But this contemplation of death or reflection of death is how you do that without actually killing this being. So I'm just going to stop here. This is what I have to share with you guys on eliminating fear. And you can do this one by one with your fears. And if you have certain fears that you would like to talk about, either here at the temple or online, and you're not quite sure how to desensitize the mind to it, let me know and I will help you. You can use the microphones here. And those of you guys online, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So do you guys have any questions here or online? You have a question, Leo? Yep. No batteries. The microphones are impermanent too, just like the Buddha said.
Hello.
There we go.
I think I often in the past and was afraid about sharks.
Sharks.
Because I saw movies when I was a kid of the white shark and so on.
Yep.
And even I think there was a movie they put a shark into a lake.
Oh, shark. Okay, yeah. Sharks. Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when I was swimming in the lake, I also was afraid that maybe some other fish could attack me, and I don't see it because I cannot see what is going down up there.
Yep.
And I realized that the last times when I was swimming, not so afraid, but sometimes I thought about when I was in the water about these fishes. So they got this anxious come up. They're like, I think I go back to the land. Yeah. So
Yeah, so this is similar to the spiders, right? That you can look at pictures of sharks, you can look at movies of sharks, you can look at preserved sharks, you can actually go to aquatic places where they have sharks swimming around. You can even go scuba diving with sharks. I did this at one point where I went scuba diving with sharks. Not great white sharks, but I mean, you can actually do that. But I went with little reef sharks. They were probably like, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 feet long or something like that. So there's things like that you can do in order to train your mind, because oftentimes sharks are depicted as, aggressive and hostile and bitter in movies, and people are trying to produce that fear in your mind. But you can train your mind to look at these things and not be fearful, and then go look at pictures, look at videos, go to places where sharks are actually swimming around, and you can even get into the tank with them or go scuba diving in their natural environment. These are ways you can eliminate your fear of sharks.
What about if I watch these movies? I mean, the movies are brutal, the shark is a bad.
Those are going to reinforce your current conditioning of your mind. If your mind's been conditioned to think sharks are bad and that something bad's going to happen to me if I watch or if I experience interaction with a shark, if you watch like a horror movie that involves sharks, it's just going to reinforce your conditioning of the mind, which is not what you're interested in doing. You're actually interested in replacing these experiences that you've had with something positive. So I'll give you an example of this that's not sharks to show you what the mind does. Let's just say somebody got into a car accident and they had a horrible car accident. They ended up in the hospital for multiple weeks, right? Well, when they finally come home from the hospital, there's a good chance that they'll be afraid of driving in a car because they can remember this experience. And now when they're in the passenger side, they're just really, really scared of driving in the car, right? Because what's happening is the mind is clinging, it's holding on to this experience, and it's thinking that that's going to happen every single time. Because the mind craves permanence and it thinks the world is permanent, then it thinks that this experience in the car is permanent, that every time I get in a car, I'm going to have an accident. So what you need to do is you need to uncondition the mind. You need to let that go and train your mind to not hold on to that experience thinking that that's what's going to happen every single time. So what you do is you go out on the car with somebody who you trust, who can drive the car, and you just drive on small streets like in your neighborhood. Then when you get comfortable with that, then you have them take you to kind of medium-sized streets and you trust them and they drive you around, and now you get desensitized to that and you replace this experience that you had where you got in an accident with these new experiences that, hey, I can go out in the car and not get in an accident. And now they take you out on bigger roads, right? And then eventually you do it yourself. You drive on smaller roads, medium roads, bigger roads, and you're replacing this experience of having had a painful experience with the body. Now you're replacing it with these new experiences. You're unconditioning the mind, right? Some people call this experience with getting in a car accident, they call it trauma or PTSD or any of these other things. But all that is the mind holding on and clinging, and it's having this permanence, thinking that this thing is permanent. So trauma is not permanent. PTSD is not permanent. That's just the mind in the present moment, clinging to an experience in the past, forming feelings in the present moment based on something that happened in the past. And you can train your mind to let that go by replacing it with these new experiences. So that's what you're doing if you're trying to desensitize your mind to spiders or sharks or things like this. You're looking to replace that conditioning where the mind believes and has the perception that any time I interact with a shark, that means something bad's going to happen. So if you watched a movie where things like that are happening, it's just going to reinforce your conditioning in your perception that sharks are bad, and you're not interested in doing that. You would like to replace it with these new experiences where you can see that that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to happen maybe that I will watch a movie again, or I will see a photo where shark is attacking a human, for example. So is there that I need to do the contemplation of death and maybe eliminate the fear of pain, because I think there's anxious like, oh, if
Yeah, if you're afraid of death or you're afraid of a painful death, yeah, you're going to need to do contemplation of death. But now, if you've desensitized your mind to not viewing sharks as something bad, and now you see this experience like on the news, the shark attacked this person, you don't allow your mind to cling to that. You understand that this is an isolated situation. The person was out, boogie boarding or surfing. It looked like an injured animal. And of course, the shark's going to come around. It doesn't have the intelligence to understand this is a human being. The shark doesn't have that level of intelligence. So it's, biting this human being, thinking that it's getting an injured seal or, something like this. And it thinks that it's food. So you can see that that's an isolated situation, because there's millions and millions and millions of people that go into the ocean every single day. But I think there's only like maybe 200 or 300 shark incidents per year, right? For an entire year. So we probably have billions of encounters where humans are in the sea, but there's only such a small percentage of where sharks actually attack humans. It's very minimal. So you need to be able to see that when you hear this on the news, you don't allow your mind to associate that with that's going to happen to everybody. You need to be able to see the truth of how rare that is for that thing to occur and not cling to it as that's what's going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome. Do you have a question?
I don't know if it would. Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because thinking about the fear as a precondition to any other emotion, let's say so, I don't know, because it looks like, okay, behind any other emotion, there is a fear.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other maybe that deserves such a contemplation about, like, similar to fear, that's strong and that really basic?
It's not true that every emotion has a fear behind it, but the mind obviously can fear many different things. This is a unique way to kind of go in and almost surgically remove a craving, desire, attachment that's producing fear. But there's other emotions too. There's a large spectrum of emotions that the unenlightened mind will experience. Underneath of all of those is craving, desire, attachment, craving for permanence. And the Eightfold Path, if you understand it in its entirety, is going to help you eliminate all of those, including the ones that is producing fear. But in terms of going in and almost surgically removing the ones producing fear, this is how you would do it. But you would still need that Eightfold Path that I shared. That's why I shared it at the beginning. You still need this to be well underway in order to be able to do this, that you would like to be able to learn this first and put it well into practice. That's why this is chapter 17 in the book, because chapter 4 and 5 was the Eightfold Path. And I've already taught that. And then now we're getting deeper into the program to help students understand how to eliminate fear. So there aren't any other emotions that are necessarily the same as what we're explaining here, but it's the same cause that's causing it. But the way that you approach it is going to be different for each individual situation. But you're still working with this generalized training of the Eightfold Path, that this is going to eliminate all the cravings, desires, attachments.
And thank you very much. What I'm also curious is, what is the right livelihood?
Sure. So a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come to you. So like businesses and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, poisons, and then also how you perform your livelihood too. The Buddha gives you guidance to get to a point where you can have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation in your work, that you're not just working for money, right? And you're not doing unwise things in your livelihood, because he's teaching you how to get to a point where you have this enthusiasm, where you truly enjoy the work that you do on each individual basis each day. So he has teachings that I just kind of glossed over for you. But if you study with the resources that I share, which are all available for you for free, you can understand more deeply what is this livelihood, so that whatever you do to sustain your life, you're not causing harm to others. And ultimately you get to the point where you have enthusiasm and ambition in the day-to-day work that you do. You're welcome. Okay, we have some questions online here. I think this is Alicia. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, good evening. There is two fears that I would like to talk about, and the first one is the fear of, let's say, explosion in the street, or shooting or bombing or alarm, because in the past I've been near terrorist attack or things like that. So sometimes I have just, if I hear some noise that looks like something like bombarding or shooting or something like that, I'm getting scared. And the first thing I want to do is just go back home or leave the street or getting away from the noise.
Okay, perfect. So we live in a great time where we can actually do this desensitization really well. That wasn't necessarily always possible during the lifetime of the Buddha. Because we have YouTube videos, we have podcasts, audio files, things like this, you can actually pull these up on an electronic device and you can play these from time to time, really loud explosions, in order to desensitize the mind to it. Because all that's being experienced is impermanence. That's all it is. That the mind's craving perhaps a certain sound, quietness. And now when you hear that loud explosion, the mind is associating that to something harmful. So if you can play this through speakers at a very loud volume every once in a while sporadically, this is really helpful for you, because then you can desensitize your mind to it. And then as you do this yourself, you know that the sound is coming and you're going to be able to more easily be able to desensitize your mind to it. But then if you live with other people or you have friends or family, if you could have them involved, that you don't know when they're going to do it, that they just do it without you realizing when they were going to do it, that's going to allow the mind to increment the stimulus a bit more. So initially, if you're doing it yourself, this will help you to get to that level of comfort. But then if you can instruct one of your friends or family, if you can ask for their support to be able to hit this, audio file every once in a while throughout your day, this will actually help you to desensitize your mind further, because you'll catch you by surprise and you'll need to be able to train your mind to not have that craving for permanent silence, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and the second fear that I have is still in the street, is sometimes walking in front of a group of men, or sometimes even men alone, if they look threatening, but maybe it's just in my mind also. And especially in the night, because I get some trouble sometimes. So I'm afraid of getting in trouble. But sometimes it's really like it can froze me in the street, and I also want to change path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So what I would suggest here is going out with somebody that you trust and that you can walk together with this person. And now you guys walk during the daytime, starting with that, because that would be the less sensitive for the mind, but it's still stimulus. And you put your mind in that situation. And you're going to need to walk around with a goal of doing this. And then after you do that several times and you feel comfortable with it, do it in the daytime without this friend. And now you feel comfortable with that. And then if you'd like to increment it more, you can go out in the nighttime with a friend in order to desensitize the mind to that. And then if you'd like to do it on your own, you can do it there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, we have either Adela or Joe here.
David, yes, this is Adela. So my son, who is 8, has a number of fears, which is understandable because he's still a kid. But one of his fears that I think is disruptive to him is the fear of not being. So whenever I step outside the house or somebody's not in the house, he just immediately leaves the house. Can I apply any of these teachings to help him with this fear, or is this like my craving for him not to have this fear and maybe I shouldn't interfere? I just wanted to get your thoughts.
Sure. Can you mention the fear again? Because my sound went out right when you mentioned the fear.
Sure. So he has a fear of being alone in the house.
Oh, being alone. Okay. And how old's your son?
8.
He's 8. Okay. Yeah. So he's going to need to get desensitized to that, and you can help him with that. My son had a fear of darkness, around this time, like 6, 7, 8 years old. I needed to help him with that. So what you would like to do is, get to the point where he's comfortable and he's agreeing that this is something that he would like to be able to address. And then when he's comfortable with that, let him know that you're going to step outside, that you're going to be in the yard. I think you probably have somewhere around your house or something like that where he can be inside and you're going to be just outside. And you let him know that you're going to go outside for just 5 minutes, and you make it like a game, because for children, they like things that are games. So you make it like a game that you start out with, like you're going to go outside just for a limited period of time, and he stays inside doing whatever he's going to do. And if he's doing something else, like playing with Legos or playing some game, that'll help him, because it'll take his mind away from thinking about the fact that nobody's in the house with him. So if he can be sitting down playing a game, that would be helpful for him. And then you just go outside, and then you go outside for, say, 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever you think is a good time that's going to be something that will be successful for him, that he can actually do. In fact, you might even ask him, how long does he think that you would be able to go outside and he would like to, play this game. So you go outside for that amount of time, and then when you come back and he's not scared, then you celebrate, yay, you high five it, hugs, kisses, all these kinds of things. You celebrate, right? And now you say, hey, would you like to play this game again? And he's like, all right, mommy. And now you maybe go out for longer, right? So 8 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is that he does. And now you go up to a certain amount of time where you can go outside and be away, and he's at home by himself. Now, at that age of 8 years old, you're not going to go away for 3 hours and leave him at home, but you're just going to go outside the house. But ultimately, as he ages and he gets closer and closer to 12, 13, 14, and so forth, you'll be able to actually leave the house for, extended periods of time. But this is how you start it, with little small increments like this. And make it as a game, Mm-hmm.
This wouldn't be like, it would be okay. I mean, I feel like it's like my craving for him to not have this fear, but it's okay for me to interfere to help him, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it sounds like you have a craving, a longing, yearning for him to not have the fear. You would like to be able to eliminate that yourself, that craving. But one of the ways to eliminate a craving is, yes, cut it off and let it go. But the other way to eliminate a craving, desire, attachment is to fulfill it, right? You've probably heard me talk about, like, if you had a craving to go to the Philippines and you've never gone to the Philippines before, you could cut it off and let it go. Or you could just go visit the Philippines and check it out. And now you'll extinguish that craving. But you just need to watch over the mind that you're not craving to go to Hong Kong and Tokyo, and your mind's longing, yearning. So you can actually fulfill a craving like this, where your son is no longer fearing being alone, and that'll actually satisfy the mind, and then it'll be gone and out of the mind.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, I'm just going to check here a little bit more, see if we have any other questions. Oh, you have a question, ma'am? Yes. It just takes like a second for the mics to engage. Once you turn it on, the lights come on. Just give it.
I think
there you go.
Could you share more details on how to put into practice the contemplation of death,
Mm-hmm.
and in particular, how to find the right moment to cut it off? As you build it up. So I would like to learn more.
Sure. What I suggest people do is that they first learn this Eightfold Path before they do the contemplation of death. That's why this is chapter 17, because when you do that contemplation of death, it's going to put your mind into sorrow, into sadness, into potentially fear. And you're going to need to regain your composure of your mind. And it's this mental discipline section here that's teaching you how to do that. If you haven't learned this and you're not practicing this regularly, you're not going to be able to easily regain your stability of your mind. It'll still become stable because that fear is impermanent, but you can regain your stability much more readily when you understand this. So I suggest that you practice this first. Then when you do, you're going to develop what's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is awareness of mind, but it's more detailed than that. But just in general, for our little conversation here, is it means awareness of mind. And right effort is where you're training your mind to apply the effort to cut off and let go of the unwholesome and arise the wholesome. Again, it's more detailed than that, but this is just for our conversation, so that when you're in the contemplation of death and your mind is being convinced that you've died, and you're going to notice with your mindfulness or awareness of mind that this fear is arising, you then apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. And that's what is going to help you to be able to now extinguish the craving, desire, attachment. It's kind of like this, is that if you had a post or a pillar and there were animals tied to it, and these animals kept pulling and pulling, like the alligators going to the river, the monkeys going to the jungle, the birds pulling to the sky. They'll get to the end of the rope and they'll get yanked back to the post and pillar. They will pull and pull and pull for a period of time, but eventually, when they realize that they can't go anywhere, they're just going to sit down calmly by the post and pillar because they can't pull anymore. They realize that they can't go anywhere. So your mind is the same way. It's going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And if you keep yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back, eventually your mind over time is going to just be calm and stable and steady. It's just going to sit there by that post or pillar, just like those animals. So you need this mental discipline section, understanding it in detail, its entirety, to be able to know how to actually do this, because you're doing this in meditation, but you also need to do this in your day-to-day life as well, so that way throughout your entire day, whenever you see your mind pulling and pulling and pulling towards something, you can yank it back. And over time, if you do this in the contemplation of death in your day-to-day life, your mind won't pull anymore, and you won't experience that fear of death and all these other things. So I encourage you to focus on this, and you can learn this through our YouTube videos, our podcast, our book. We have classes and courses and retreats, but the next one isn't coming up for about maybe, I think, 10 days or so. The next one is coming up. So if you're in Chiang Mai, you can attend, but if not, you can attend by live stream, because we live stream it. But also I've taught it many, many times, so it's been recorded on our YouTube channel. And then you can even get personal guidance to help you as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking you guys for joining, and at the same time invite you to learn more if you would like to. That if you'd like to get a version of this book, you can actually download it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. So that's where I suggest that people start, is with this first book. This group learning program, you can join it at any time. It's going to be restarting on January 4th. From the very beginning. And no matter where you are in the world, you can actually learn slowly but surely over a 7-month period to be able to gradually understand the path to enlightenment, to be able to train your mind on a consistent, ongoing basis. The next event that we're going to have here is on Wednesday at 9 a.m. I'm going to be doing meditation with students, and then I'll just open up to whatever questions they have. So if you guys would like to join for that, you're more than welcome to. On Friday, we have a game night where we have a social event where students come together, and that's at 6 p.m. on Friday night. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we also have classes at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And then not this Monday, tomorrow, but the following Monday, we're going to be starting a course called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. And that's where you can get a real nice foundation for all the teachings of the Buddha. So thank you guys again for joining. Thank you for everyone online for your questions and your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path. Perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.